Hi, I'm Micah Clark. It's great to have you join us today. Today we're going to be talking about the first of our series of videos on home education. And with me today is Julie Schwind. You may know Julie if you've called our office. She is my administrative assistant, our office manager. She is the glue that holds this organization together. If Julie leaves, AFA grinds to a halt within a matter of days. But we've pulled her in here to talk as a homeschool mom about home education. School has started recently, and I know a lot of parents are maybe trying home education for the first time. Many parents, or maybe even many grandparents, are considering home education. So we wanted to talk to Julie, not as the administrative assistant of AFA, but as a homeschool mom. So Julie, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
You're a homeschool mom. Tell our audience how many kids you have, when you started. Are they all home educated, or have they been in other settings?
Yep, I have 5 kids, currently 24 down to 14.
Okay.
And this is our 20th year of homeschooling.
Wow.
So yeah, I have home educated them since the very beginning.
So my wife homeschooled as well. I would say us. I taught government and econ, but she did 90% of it.
Yeah.
And I remember when we started, my daughter is a year older than my son, and I just remember I can't put her on a school bus. I remember what a school bus was like when I was a child. It was horrible. The things I was exposed to on school bus were probably worse than at school. And so we started thinking about home education for, I think, values reasons. And then we worried about academics, but I'll get into the academics. But what were the reasons you looked at when you started, if you can remember years ago, what you and your husband talked about when you first considered various types of education?
When we started considering it, at that time we had 3 little boys. And they were just energy and movement and wild and running around. And one of the things that was really hard for me to consider wasn't so much the school bus, but the idea of seeing those kids stuck in a desk all day long when they were so active. And we were surrounded by a lot of people at our church who were homeschooling. So we had the opportunity to see what homeschool kids looked like. They all looked really normal. They seemed really happy. And we started hearing about, specifically with boys, how to incorporate movement into their education. And that was really attractive to us. Probably the main reason, though, that we started homeschooling was that we really wanted a faith-based education for our kids. And financially, we couldn't really do like Christian private school for them. So we just really wanted to do that, and we felt like homeschooling was the best way for us to provide that for them.
Well, that was kind of our motivation as well. We were concerned about faith elements. We considered private school. I'd gone to private high school, but it simply wasn't affordable for us.
Yeah.
And there weren't a lot of options. There were a few, but a lot of Christian schools we looked at were full, and we just simply couldn't afford it. And so was there another consideration for private school, or was it always homeschooling? Did you know people who home educated and just that was your first consideration?
Yeah, our church really was filled with homeschoolers. And so getting to see especially some of the older kids, junior high school age, and see them still homeschooling and talking with their moms, and their moms kind of alleviating some of my fears of my own ability to be able to do this for them and prepare them for their life. Just to see these really successful, happy, well-rounded kids kind of gave us a very positive view of homeschooling at the time.
Now, one of the things I've talked to a lot of parents, and they say, well, I like homeschooling, but I don't think I could do that. Was that a concern? Were you because I know it's a year-by-year thing.
Yes, and that's actually what we said at the beginning. We're going to do this 1 year at a time. We'll commit to kindergarten with our first child, and we'll see how it goes. Because people always used to say to me, oh, do you think you'd ever want to be a teacher? And I was like, no. Like, there's no reason I wanted to ever think about being a teacher. But when it came down to my own kids, I was, I guess, challenged that I actually could do this. And one of the things that one of these moms told me was, you don't have to be like a licensed teacher or someone who's been trained in teaching children. The curriculum that we're doing with these kids has been written in such a way to enable the mom to be able to do this from home. And so when they were little, of course, it wasn't hard, right? I can do the basic things. And actually teaching them to read and write and all of that was so much fun, was so exciting to see them getting all of it. And then later on, when things did get a little bit past what I was able to do, then we were able to be involved in a homeschool co-op where there were moms who were much more skilled in, like, let's say, biology and geometry, algebra, the things that are not my strengths. And then, so my kids were able to be taught by other moms who did have this as their strength. So, in the early days, we saw all of that in front of us with these other moms and what they did. And we just really had some great moms invest in us and dads too, and kind of just cast that vision for us that this really was possible.
Well, you and my wife were very similar personalities in that you're very structured people. That's why you're phenomenal here at AFA. Did you come to appreciate the flexibility you had with homeschooling? Were you working at the time, or were you not?
I've always worked.
You have.
Yeah, I've always worked from home at least, doing some form of bookkeeping or something. Just to help my husband along, because being a one-income family is really hard, and it's just getting harder and harder, right? So even back then it was hard. So anything I could do to pitch in, I did, but we always had the kids as the first priority, and then jobs would work around that. So that we were very blessed that a lot of little opportunities came along for me to work from home. I did really enjoy the flexibility, especially because I just kept having babies. I had so many babies, one after the other, and pretty soon I've got 5 kids. And I always had toddlers, babies along for the ride. And, sometimes that was hard, but usually it was fine, Now,
I know a lot of moms, and this intimidated my wife some because she works also. And so we really felt like we needed a package curriculum. And some moms will pull from a Becca or pull from different companies, or even a public school textbook, or or they'll put together this great. We just needed something that we needed that was prepackaged because of limited time. Did you use a prepackaged program at first, or did you build your own curriculum?
Yeah, we started with Sunlight, which we thought was really good.
Sure.
It was a lot. And so what they do is they provide you everything, and you're kind of supposed to make it work for your family, leave some behind, they give you more options than you need. I was not good at that. Like, if they handed me 56 options, I feel like I have to do all 56 of them, And so that curriculum really just didn't work for my personality long term. And what we found was we tried some things, and then we were like, this doesn't work for our family. And we tried some other things. Okay, this doesn't work for our family. Really good advice that we did get from one family, though, was stick with your math curriculum if you can, unless it just really doesn't work, because it's building on concepts, and if you keep switching your concept, you might miss some things. So
now, there's probably moments every homeschool mom or dad runs into where they just want to throw in the towel, and they just it's conflict. And one of the things that my wife was concerned about that turned out, thankfully, not to be true, but I think it's something that scares a lot of mothers, is they don't feel like they can be both a teacher and a mom and have a good relationship with their child in both those roles. Did you feel that, run into that? Or it turned out, in our case, not to be that big of an issue. Our kids, understood there's times when mom has to push you. There's times you have to get things done. That's how school is. That's how life is. And there was concerns at times that, I've ruined my relationship with my kids because, Ben got an F or something. I don't think he ever got an F. But was that a concern? Because I hear that from some parents. I don't think I could have a good relationship with my children. We found the opposite to be true. I think the relationship with our kids, seeing them every hour of the day or spending more time with them, was actually quite beneficial.
I actually have really not run into that problem. Okay. Well, I won't say I've never run into that problem. With each child, I might look at them and go, okay, you know what? For this particular subject, it's better if I'm not your teacher. And then if we're in a co-op, or if I can get them into another class, then sometimes you do have to use some discernment. We are very different in the way that we view these things and the way that we understand them. And the way that I'm trying to explain this to him or her is just not working. And so let's go ahead and find someone who they do connect with. So, because my ultimate goal is to get them the best education I can. And so if that means it's through someone else, that's okay. I'm okay with that. But as far as like our relationship, not really, no. it's funny because I don't feel like their mom when I'm teaching them. I feel like their teacher, and they feel like I'm their teacher.
Right.
You know, rather than it's my mom. I don't know. It just never really was a problem.
So you've kind of walked into that. You've got 3 boys in college, or one who's graduated.
I have two that have graduated. Yeah.
Was there any feeling that you had? Did I give my kids a good education? Was it as good as public school or private school? And can they get into college? Do you have any issues with that whatsoever?
We had no issues with getting them into college. We were advised by a trusted homeschool mom on how to create a really clear transcript for them with all the information that a college would be looking at, and to have a transcript that really looks like most everybody else's transcripts that they're going to see in that admissions process. And my kids certainly had way more than they needed beyond the Indiana Core 40 and all of those things that schools are looking at, because we had lots of opportunities for them and they took lots of credits and courses. So we really never have had a problem with it. The 3 boys have all gotten into Purdue without problem. They've all gotten full ride scholarships to Purdue. And so, you know, I mean, really there's been no issue.
It seems to me in doing homeschool conventions, a lot of colleges really want homeschool kids. They're seeking them out. Did you see that as well?
I did not personally see that. Purdue really didn't express anything like that, but I have read a lot of studies, especially at the Ivy League level, that they're even kind of holding back a little bit of their enrollment numbers, that setting them aside and hoping to pull homeschoolers into those spaces. Just because what my kids have found, that they've told me, is when they got to school, they already knew how to manage their time,
right?
How to get an assignment on one day of the week and have it due the next week, and be able to manage that assignment throughout the week and plan their schedule. Because really, about the time that they're in 7th, 8th grade, I'm no longer in charge of their schedules at all, and I ask them to make them with my help if they need help. And so they've had a lot of opportunity by the time they get to college to be in charge of their academic schedule and planning out their homework. And they just felt very equipped. And especially because I was a little bit of a hard teacher, and so I assigned a lot of work to them. Right. And so when they got to college, they basically said, yeah, I was ready for the workload. Yeah.
Now, the big question always comes up, maybe not so much now, that homeschooling is more common, but when you first started, it was the S word.
Socialization, yeah.
What's your experience with? I mean, I've met your kids; they're wonderful.
Thanks.
You know, they interact well with kids their age, older kids, adults. But talk to me about socialization. Was that a concern?
It is not a concern. and homeschoolers laugh whenever someone says, you know, what about socialization? Because clearly these people have never interacted with homeschoolers. Because, you know, we had a friend who jokingly said we call it car schooling instead of homeschooling, because our kids are so involved in so many things. One of the homeschool groups that we've been with has a wonderful theater program, and our kids for years have been involved in musical theater. They've been able to be in sports whenever they wanted to. We can get them music lessons. We can do all the things, and they spend a lot of their time with their friends. Homeschooling is not us locked in the house 7 days a week. Especially for our kids who are in these co-ops. They are there. Our kids this year, the 2 that are still at home, are in this co-op 2 days a week. So 2 days a week, they're in a classroom with a teacher. They're sitting with their peers, you know, all the typical kind of things you associate with school. But then the rest of the week, there's also plenty of opportunity to work, to go and spend time with your friends. You know, there's never been a problem with socialization for us. All of our boys have been caddies, and so that has been, you know, a big thing for them. They've all worked in coffee shops. We kind of, I guess, have a theme. And, you know, so they're out there learning work skills. And the fact that they are homeschooled, like right now here in, you know, the early part of the day, my son is at work and he'll manage his homework and everything around working part-time at the coffee shop he works at.
Well, let me put your AFA hat on and ask you a policy question. Tell us, because I know you know the answer. When you think about socialization, people think it's homeschool kids are not socialized, but there's 2 types of socialization. There's good socialization, there's bad socialization.
That's right.
Was that a concern? Because one of the things that's impressed me about my kids is the quality of friends that they have. I'm not saying public school kids are not quality kids at
Sure.
all, but there are things that they don't have to deal with that they're not ready for. They're being introduced to kids at young ages in public schools that cause socialization issues. Was that a concern? Obviously it was, but the faith issue was a concern.
Sure.
So when someone says socialization, do you ever think, well, there's good socialization and bad socialization?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of influences I don't want in my kids' life, especially when they're very, very young.
Right.
And once we've gotten to that junior high school age, and they're out doing things like having jobs, working on the golf course in the world and doing all the things, you know, because we're home with them so much, we can really like process through all the stuff that they're being exposed to, talk about it. How do we deal with this as people, as Christians? How do we deal with this? You know, how should I treat that person who says or does those things? They're going to be exposed to things whether they're homeschooled or not.
Right.
I do think we minimized the early exposure and really helped them to build a good foundation on their faith before they had to encounter a lot of it. But I just think that, you know, when it does finally come up, and it is going to, we have a lot of time to talk through these things and really wrestle with it with them, and it's been very good.
Yeah, because, you know, they say homeschoolers are sheltered. Well, that's not a bad thing.
No.
It's impossible to shelter your kids from the world. It's preparing them for the world
That's
rather
right.
than just throwing them into it.
It's equipping them.
Yes.
It's giving them the equipment that they need to be able to deal with what is coming.
Now, let me close with this because
Sure.
we've reached our time. But for those who are watching or considering homeschooling, what are the rules in Indiana? You have to meet about 180 days and keep a transcript. Is there more to it than that? Do you know?
No.
Yeah.
In Indiana, the rules are very minimal. We have to keep a record of 180 days of schooling per year, and that is the law. So obviously, for us, we've always had a membership with HSLDA, just in case anyone ever came to the door and said, hey, why aren't your kids in school?
Right.
We want to have, you know, some legal representation on hand if we ever needed it, but we have never needed it in 20 years, and hopefully we never will. You know, really, as long as we're keeping track of the days that we're doing. And it's not just that, though. People say, oh, you're just keeping track of days, but you could do anything during those days. Every homeschool parent that I know wants to prepare their child academically.
Yes.
We're not looking for reasons not to.
Right.
So as far as record keeping goes, we keep track of our days. And I do keep track of what we've done as far as the curriculum. I save tests and papers and all those things if they ever needed to be looked at. And once they hit high school, then of course it's transcripts every semester, and we follow all the rules.
Did you test your children? I know we took I think it was the Iowa or the California standard. It was offered by one of the co-ops, and we did that once or twice. Kids were doing fine.
Yeah.
But I know that's an option. Did you do that with your children?
We haven't done it regularly. We have done it.
Right.
We did the Iowa, but we haven't done it regularly.
And they did fine.
They did fine. Once they hit that PSAT level and everything was fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good. Did they do the SAT or ACT when they went in?
They have all done the SAT so far. We have one who's just about to start with the PSAT.
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate I pulled you in here kind of short notice. You did a great job. And I hope this whets the appetite for our audience of people who either know homeschool families, want to learn more about it. There are a host of co-ops all over Indiana. Almost every county has one or two or three. And they're very helpful for like Spanish or biology or even drama, things like that.
That's right.
So I would encourage parents, if you're considering this, ask around, contact the Indiana Association of Home Educators. They can help you with that. Go online, find out about what needs to be done. But it is an option that's growing rapidly. And I hope this was helpful for you today as you tune in. Appreciate you joining us. And I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for watching the AFA of Indiana videos.